You know that butcher guy that used to go like this with the salt?
Yeah, he's a piece of
Apparently
garbage.
his empire crumbled.
You've probably seen the videos, the memes, and even the celebrities copying his iconic salt sprinkle move. But what you don't know is how Salt Bae's empire, once worth millions, has crumbled under the weight of unchecked ego, bad business decisions, and a series of shocking scandals. Stick around because this story is not just about a chef. It's about how viral fame can rise and fall in the blink of an eye. And trust me, you won't believe how it all unfolded. Nusret Gökçe, better known as Salt Bae, didn't start his journey in the glamorous world of luxury restaurants or celebrity-studded events. In fact, his beginnings were far from glamorous. Born in 1983 in the rural village of Pasali, Turkey, Nusret came from a Kurdish family that struggled financially. His father worked as a miner, but the family still faced severe hardships. By the time Nusret was just 13, he had no choice but to leave school and start working. The weight of his family's financial struggles pushed him into a butcher's apprenticeship in Istanbul's busy Kataköy district. It was here that he first gained a deep understanding of meat, how to prepare it, how to cook it, and most importantly, how to make it perfect. Little did anyone know, this early exposure to the art of butchery would lay the foundation for a future empire. Nusret's story could have ended there, with a quiet life spent cutting meat in Istanbul. But fate had different plans. Between 2007 and 2010, Nusret embarked on a personal journey that would change everything. Determined to learn from the best, he traveled across the globe, working unpaid in renowned restaurants in Argentina and the United States. The sacrifices he made, working long hours without pay, sleeping on floors, and learning under some of the world's best chefs, were a testament to his dedication and ambition. This was his path to mastery, his way of building not just skills, but credibility. By the time he returned to Turkey in 2010, Nusret was ready to open his first restaurant in Istanbul. The seed of his empire had been planted, though it would take years before the world would know his name. At this point, Nusret was a talented but unknown chef, quietly creating a reputation for himself in the culinary world. In 2010, after years of hard work and self-improvement, Nusret opened his first restaurant in Istanbul, named Nusret. It was modest at first, catering to local customers with his signature touch on meat dishes. His culinary skills were undeniable, and the restaurant gained some attention, but it was far from the global empire that would soon follow. For 4 years, his restaurants operated under the radar, quietly serving quality food to those in the know. There was no hint of the viral phenomenon that would soon make Nusret Gökçe a household name. But everything changed in 2017 with a single Instagram post that would launch him into stardom. On January 7th, Nusret posted a 36-second video that would soon take the internet by storm. In it, he performed his now iconic salt sprinkling maneuver over a massive tomahawk steak. It wasn't just the food that caught attention. It was the theatrics. Nusret's signature move, dropping salt from his fingertips in a dramatic arc, combined with his slicked-back hair, tight white t-shirt, and sunglasses, turned what should have been a regular cooking video into an unforgettable moment. The video quickly went viral, racking up over 16 million views in just a matter of days. People were mesmerized by his style and the seemingly effortless way he turned an everyday activity, sprinkling salt, into something almost magical. For a time, it felt like nothing could stop him. Nusret's brand had gone from a small Istanbul restaurant to a global sensation almost overnight. His newfound fame brought investors, celebrity endorsements, and a massive following. The viral phenomenon had turned into a massive business opportunity, and soon Nusret was opening restaurants in Dubai, 2014, New York, 2017, and London, 2018, expanding his empire and catering to the elite. As Salt Bae's fame grew, so did the pressure to maintain his viral persona.
Bruno Mars's Twitter post featuring an image from the video garnered over 21,000 retweets.
What started as a moment of genuine skill and charm soon became a carefully crafted performance. one that began to overshadow his true passion for cooking. Nusret Gökçe, once a humble chef, now found himself constantly in the spotlight, not for his culinary talents, but for the spectacle he had become. It wasn't long before cracks began to appear in the shiny exterior of his empire. The first signs of trouble came in the form of increasingly toned-down criticism of his food and restaurants. As Nusret expanded internationally, his restaurants became more about the experience than the actual meal. The focus shifted to the extravagant dining spectacle, the show of flamboyance, the theatrical salt sprinkling, and less on the quality of the food itself. Critics soon began to speak up. Despite the restaurant's skyrocketing prices, the reviews were far from glowing. In New York, the New York Post dubbed Salt Bae's restaurant the public ripoff #1, while GQ's Joshua David Stein described the steaks as mundane and the hamburgers as overcooked. More troubling, many customers and critics reported that the meat was often tough and overpriced, with some even claiming that the dishes were oversalted, a critique that seemed ironic given his signature move. But the issues didn't stop with the food. The real turning point came in September 2018 at the Istanbul Nusret location. What was supposed to be a flames and fire spectacle turned into a nightmare when the restaurant's bar area caught fire during a tableside performance. The flames quickly engulfed the entire bar, leaving 4 tourists with severe burns. Among the victims was Tinas Chechnichkova, a Czech influencer who suffered third-degree burns on 35% of her body. Despite the severity of the incident, the focus remained on showmanship rather than addressing the systemic issues with Salt Bae's restaurant model. The warning signs were there, but they were ignored in favor of maintaining the viral, celebrity-driven persona that had helped build his empire. This incident would not be the last to shake the foundations of Nusret's brand, but it was the first glaring example that spectacle alone could not sustain a thriving business. As Salt Bae's brand grew, so did his reliance on theatrics and performative dining. The spectacle became central to his restaurant experience, but the pursuit of viral moments was gradually eating away at the core of his empire. What began as an exciting culinary journey turned into a carefully choreographed performance, one that would eventually crumble under its own weight. In 2019, things started to unravel at an alarming rate. Salt Bae's restaurant in Istanbul had already suffered from the disastrous fire incident that exposed major flaws in his business model. But this was just the beginning. The pursuit of over-the-top experiences continued to clash with the very principles of running a successful, sustainable restaurant. One of the most glaring signs of trouble came in the form of staffing cuts and declining quality. Salt Bae's restaurant empire, which had expanded rapidly, was now facing increasing financial strain. The high operational costs associated with running such an extravagant show, from elaborate displays of culinary flair to the constant need for Salt Bae's presence, made it harder to maintain quality. In 2019, as more and more locations opened up, staff complaints began to surface, highlighting a severe imbalance between show and substance. Salt Bae's brand was built on the idea of luxury dining, but this luxury came at a steep price, not just for the customers, but for the staff as well. The wage theft allegations were the next major scandal to hit the empire. In 2019, 4 former employees filed a lawsuit accusing Salt Bae of systematic tip theft and mistreatment.
Behind all the gold and the glitz and glam, there's a dark story here. Workers at his 20-plus restaurant locations are reporting horrific conditions.
These workers claimed that Salt Bae had pocketed their tips and fired anyone who questioned the practice. This was just the first in a series of legal battles that would soon expose the darker side of Salt Bae's empire. As Salt Bae's restaurant chain expanded, it became increasingly clear that the empire he had built wasn't sustainable. The focus on spectacle had come at the cost of basic operational integrity, and the legal battles, labor issues, and declining quality of food were slowly eroding the foundation of his empire. What had once seemed like a golden opportunity, a viral chef who became an international sensation, was quickly spiraling into a nightmare. Salt Bae's journey took another dramatic turn during the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar, a moment that would solidify his transformation from beloved meme icon to an infamous attention seeker.
I think people would pay $500 just to see him go and do the...
Yeah. No, and he had lookalikes. In restaurants, he had lookalikes. People thought it was him, and it wasn't him.
No
it was
way!
Lookalikes. And when Fidel Castro died, he had a picture of him in front of Fidel Castro's photograph,
so
smoking
he's a
cigar.
communist.
But he had just opened a restaurant in Miami.
What should have been a triumphant celebration of Argentina's stunning victory over France turned into a media frenzy when Nusret Gökçe, the man behind Salt Bae, inserted himself into the post-match festivities in an utterly inappropriate manner. The incident began with the World Cup final, which saw Argentina claim their long-awaited victory. But instead of focusing on the players' historic achievement, the attention soon shifted to Salt Bae's behavior on the field. Videos surfaced showing him aggressively pursuing photo opportunities with the victorious players, grabbing Lionel Messi's arm repeatedly despite the soccer legend's clear discomfort. But things escalated further. In what could only be described as a disrespectful act, Salt Bae was filmed handling the World Cup trophy, something strictly prohibited by FIFA rules. The trophy, considered a priceless symbol of football excellence, is supposed to be touched only by tournament winners, FIFA officials, and heads of state.
Recently, Salt Bae posted a photo online of one customer's bill from this.
Yet, Salt Bae was seen kissing the trophy, posing with it, and even biting the medals of the players. It was as though he was trying to steal the spotlight at the most significant moment in the sport, overshadowing the very players who had just made history. The backlash was swift and severe. FIFA launched an immediate investigation into how Salt Bae had gained access to the pitch and the trophy ceremony. Fans and social media users were quick to call out his behavior, accusing him of being a clout chaser and trying to grab attention at the expense of the player's achievement. On platforms like Reddit, the reactions were overwhelmingly negative, with many fans saying he was disrespecting the moment and harassing the players. But Salt Bae didn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation. In interviews, he attempted to justify his actions by claiming that his presence on the field was a result of his love for Argentina and excitement. He even boasted about the massive global attention his antics had garnered, saying, "While 2 billion people watched the World Cup, 5 billion people are now talking about me." This statement not only highlighted his self-absorption, but it also revealed a complete misunderstanding of the situation. While it was true that he was being talked about, the conversation was overwhelmingly negative, and his behavior had alienated both fans and professionals alike. The public response was brutal. Many called him a clout chaser and accused him of trying to hijack the moment of Argentina's triumph for his own gain. The fallout from this incident was monumental, and it left Salt Bae's public image in tatters. Even though he had enjoyed massive viral fame up until this point, his actions at the World Cup marked a decisive turning point. His reputation had shifted from that of a fun-loving chef to an unwelcome celebrity intruder. This event was a wake-up call for many. It was clear that Salt Bae, once a cultural icon and viral sensation, was now seen as a parody of himself, more focused on maintaining the spectacle than being a respected figure in the culinary world. His inability to recognize the growing disdain for his actions marked the beginning of an even steeper decline. As Salt Bae's public image continued to deteriorate, the financial cracks within his empire became more visible. What had once been a thriving business built on viral fame and luxury dining began to struggle under the weight of mismanagement, declining reputation, and a crushing financial burden. The years of rapid expansion, over-the-top displays, and lavish celebrity endorsements were starting to take a toll, and the cracks were beginning to show. The first major sign of financial trouble came in the form of massive debt. Behind the glitz and glamour of Salt Bae's empire, the parent company, Dogus Holding, was grappling with an ever-growing financial burden. By 2023, it was revealed that the company had accumulated $2.5 billion in debt, a number that only became more difficult to manage as Turkey's economic crisis deepened. The Turkish lira had lost more than 60% of its value against the US dollar, making it increasingly difficult for companies like Dogus Holding to service their foreign loans. As the company struggled to repay its debts, the pressure to perform financially mounted. Dogus Holding was forced to make tough decisions to stay afloat, one of which involved selling off key assets to meet their obligations. This included the sale of the prestigious Park Hyatt Hotel in Istanbul, a symbol of the luxury lifestyle that had once been closely tied to Salt Bae's brand. But even these drastic measures couldn't stem the tide of financial losses. Meanwhile, the decline in Salt Bae's restaurant quality continued to hurt revenue. By 2024, his New York City restaurant, in which had once been a beacon of luxury dining, had gained notoriety for all the wrong reasons. The Salt Bae Burger restaurant located in New York was widely criticized and ultimately became known as the worst restaurant in New York. Gothamist, a renowned food critic, savaged the place, calling the food terrible and saying it had the charm of an airplane hangar. The $99 milkshakes and overpriced menu items became emblematic of everything wrong with the celebrity dining culture, which was more about the image than the food. This negative press was a blow to the brand's reputation, but the real disaster came when Salt Bae began shuttering locations. By 2024, Salt Bae had closed 5 of his 7 U.S. restaurants, including key locations in major cities like Los Angeles and Chicago. These closures were a clear sign that the business model was failing. The rapid expansion into new markets, once seen as a symbol of success, now revealed deep structural issues that couldn't be fixed by simply opening more restaurants. In London, the flagship Nusret Steakhouse, once a prime example of Salt Bae's culinary empire, was now struggling. Despite the premium prices, the restaurant ranked 17,426th out of nearly 17,500 restaurants on TripAdvisor. A staggering 76% of reviewers rated the restaurant as terrible, while only 30 considered it excellent. The negative reviews kept pouring in, with customers complaining about bland food, terrible service, and the absurd prices that didn't match the quality. It was clear that Salt Bae's empire was crumbling, one location at a time. But perhaps the most symbolic moment in this financial downfall came in 2024, when Salt Bae proudly shared an $18,000 bill from his Dubai restaurant on social media. The outrageous bill included 1,700 steaks, 27,000 bottles of champagne, and a $25,000 tip, all for a single meal. The internet's reaction was swift and scathing, with many pointing out the absurd wealth and excessive consumerism displayed at a time when millions of people around the world were struggling with poverty. The backlash was brutal, with critics accusing him of being tone-deaf and disconnected from reality. As Salt Bae continued to flaunt his wealth on social media, it was clear that the glamour of his empire was fading fast. The combination of poor reviews, restaurant closures, financial mismanagement, and the growing public disdain for his behavior had created a downward spiral that even Salt Bae's celebrity status couldn't escape. By 2025, the once thriving empire of Salt Bae was nearing its inevitable collapse. The restaurants were struggling, his public image had become a punchline, and the mounting financial troubles were impossible to ignore. Yet, the final blows to his reputation came not from bad reviews or lawsuits, but from moments that exposed just how far Salt Bae had fallen, both in the eyes of his fans and the public at large. The Champions League final in June 2025 marked the ultimate symbolic fall from grace for Salt Bae. After Paris Saint-Germain's stunning 5-0 victory over Inter Milan, the world's attention should have been on the player's historic win, but once again, all eyes turned to Salt Bae. This time, his desperate attempt to insert himself into the celebration was met with swift rejection. Salt Bae was caught on camera trying to access the celebration area where the players and their families were gathering. Despite being unauthorized and having no invitation, he tried to force his way onto the pitch, attempting to take photos with the players and get his own moment of glory. The most shocking part came when he was physically escorted away by security personnel, who had to step in and remove him from the scene. But the Champions League incident wasn't the only problem. Salt Bae's behavior had become increasingly tone-deaf to the changing cultural landscape. His lavish displays of wealth, such as sharing the infamous $18,000 bill from his Dubai restaurant, only further distanced him from the public. The outrage over the bill was part of a larger narrative. Salt Bae was no longer a viral chef. He was a symbol of excess, a celebrity who had lost touch with reality. As the world watched him desperately cling to the spotlight, his empire continued to shrink. In 2024, the company behind his restaurants faced major financial losses, and the London flagship restaurant saw a massive decline in revenue, dropping from $13.6 million in 2022 to just $9.3 million in 2023, a 31.6% decline. The U.S. restaurant closures, combined with the dwindling customer traffic and negative reviews, made it clear that Salt Bae's brand was unsustainable. Salt Bae's story, from humble beginnings to global icon and now a cautionary tale, serves as a brutal reminder of how quickly viral fame can evaporate. Ego, exploitation, and the relentless pursuit of attention ultimately led to the crumbling of what was once a multi-million-dollar empire. The downfall of Salt Bae isn't just about one man. It's a story about the dangers of prioritizing spectacle over substance and the fleeting nature of fame in the age of social media. By 2025, Salt Bae's empire had all but collapsed. His once thriving restaurant chain was now a shadow of its former self, struggling with negative reviews, financial strain, and a public image in ruins. What was once a global sensation was now a cautionary tale, as the cracks in his empire deepened beyond repair. The closing of multiple locations across the world highlighted just how badly things had deteriorated. Salt Bae Burger, one of his U.S. ventures, had closed in June 2023 after receiving some of the harshest critiques in New York's competitive restaurant scene. Described as a disaster by critics, it had become synonymous with poor quality and exorbitant prices. The most damning reviews called the food bland, the service terrible, and the experience itself unworthy of the price. This marked the end for one of his more ambitious projects in the U.S., reflecting the larger problems plaguing his brand. But it didn't stop there. 2024 saw the closure of 5 more U.S. locations, including key spots in Los Angeles and Chicago. These closures weren't just about failed business ventures. They were symbolic of Salt Bae's deeper problem. His brand was no longer a dining destination. It was an overhyped spectacle that couldn't survive without its founder's presence. Without Salt Bae's personal touch, the salt sprinkle, the celebrity moments, his restaurants couldn't stand on their own merit, and without the quality of food to back it up, they became mere shells of their former selves, crumbling under the weight of public disappointment. In London, the Nusret Steakhouse, which had once been the crown jewel of his empire, faced a massive decline in business, falling 31.6% in revenue from 2022 to 2023. Despite being located in one of the world's most famous dining cities, the restaurant struggled to attract customers. TripAdvisor rankings placed it at the bottom of the heap, just 69 spots above the worst-rated restaurant in the city. Customers complained about oversalted food, rushed service, and an overpriced menu that didn't match the food's quality. What was once a symbol of luxury dining had turned into a laughingstock. On social media, Salt Bae's lavish lifestyle had also become a source of ridicule. As his empire faltered, he continued to flaunt his wealth in the most ostentatious ways. In one infamous post, he shared an $18,000 bill from his Dubai restaurant, showing off the $1,700 steaks and $27,000 bottles of champagne. The backlash was swift and harsh, with social media users accusing him of being tone-deaf and out of touch with the reality that most of the world was facing. Comments pointed out that, while millions around the world were struggling with basic needs, Salt Bae was showing off his extreme wealth as though it were the pinnacle of success. The final nail in the coffin came in 2025 when Salt Bae's company, Dogus Holding, continued to spiral into debt. As the company struggled with $2.5 billion in debt, it was forced to make even more drastic cuts. Financial restructuring became inevitable, but the mounting losses were too severe to recover from. Salt Bae's net worth, once estimated between $70 million to $88 million, continued to decline as the brand collapsed. His once massive empire was now reduced to a series of shuttered locations and growing legal troubles. In the end, the rise and fall of Salt Bae's empire was a story of glittering fame built on a momentary spectacle, followed by unchecked ego, corporate greed, and an utter failure to adapt. What began as a chef's dream and a viral internet sensation became a cautionary tale of how quickly success can turn to failure when substance is sacrificed for style. The story of Salt Bae, from his humble beginnings to viral stardom and eventually to the dramatic collapse of his empire, is a stark reminder of just how fragile fame can be. What started as an authentic moment of culinary artistry combined with the power of social media became a lesson in the dangers of excess, ego, and the unchecked pursuit of attention. Salt Bae's rise to fame was nothing short of spectacular. A simple Instagram video of a chef sprinkling salt in a unique way ignited a worldwide phenomenon. Celebrities, athletes, and millions of fans flocked to his restaurants, making him a global meme icon almost overnight. Yet, as quickly as his star rose, his empire began to crumble, not because of a lack of talent, but because he placed style over substance, performance over quality, and spectacle over sustainability. The tragic part of Salt Bae's story is not just the fall of his restaurants, but the way he failed to adapt. Instead of using his fame to enhance his craft, he became obsessed with maintaining his image, losing sight of the very values that had brought him success in the first place. His public missteps, like his behavior at the 2022 World Cup and his flaunting of wealth during an economic crisis, alienated his fans and customers, further accelerating his downfall. As we reflect on the rise and fall of one of the most famous internet personalities of the 21st century, we're left with a crucial question: can anyone really outrun the fleeting nature of fame? Salt Bae's downfall suggests that even the brightest stars are susceptible to the same forces that built them. In a world obsessed with spectacle, the real challenge is not just to capture attention, but to maintain it with authenticity, responsibility, and substance.